Come to Noise with Ivan. I'm ahead of the game. I've got stuff lined up. I've been talking about stuff. I have the wheels are in motion, folks. Things are happening. Also, singles are coming out. We have pre-orders for Disfigured Robot Child. Well, it's not him. It is him, but it's Life is Suffering. Mass Graven Image as well, and HNRD. Some really cool cassettes and CDRs available on outoftheflesh.com. Um, and yeah, I think that's all the news that I have. I also have a single out right here and an album to come soon. But all that aside, roll the intro. So I've been doing some rate your music listening, some scouring, also through my Bandcamp collection, scouring and also writing reviews on paper that I like to do. These have been it's been maybe quantity over quality recently for my reviews. Um, so I kind of really don't, I don't really know how to break that down, but I had to kind of figure out a way to break down what I'm talking about with harsh noise walls, because once you listen to a certain amount of them, and there are some releases, Cosmic Silence had a release that I listened to this week. I didn't really know how to talk about it. There wasn't enough going on in the record. I mean, well, it was a great harsh noise wall that I really enjoyed. I didn't want to just say this is kind of blah, because I think because I really enjoyed it and I thought it was valuable. So I got on ChatGPT. I was like, what is theory as harsh noise walls go? Right? How does it work? What is the music theory for harsh noise walls? Because and I think that harsh noise walls is a really good way to start with addressing how noise is made up, as opposed to chaotic harsh noise, because there's just so much to break down with chaotic harsh noise. Chaotic harsh noise is more about an emotional reaction, um, and you can't really marginalize it. But the nice thing about it, and I'm not saying that you should um, like theorize and marginalize noise in general, but it really helps for when we're talking about the difference between noise wall A and noise wall B. Um, so harsh noise walls, and this is what's called partialized noise theory. Harsh noise walls are developed from three things, which is grain density, band, and micro variations. Okay, so the band is whether, if you look at an EQ graph, and generally, and I'll have to remember to add in a picture of an EQ graph for a harsh noise wall. Generally speaking, on the lower side of things, it's going to be wider grain density, right? A more coarse grain density. So it's going to sound more like an avalanche. In the low mid, it's going to sound like rocks, or yeah, it's just going to be a more coarse grain, just a more coarse grain density in the lower registering noise, and then there's going to be a more fine grain density in higher registering noise. So that tends to be how it works when there's a variation in grain density. So like if there's a higher grain density in a lower registering area, that's pretty interesting. That's something that you're going to want to look at. But figure you have something that's low, a low registering noise, or lower registering frequencies. You add distortion to that, those get distorted, then the distortion and the clipping is going to go into a higher register. So it's not as though you can put a single harsh noise wall through EQ and and look at that graph and say, okay, well, this harsh noise wall is composed of high grain densities and low grain densities. It doesn't always necessarily work like that, but you can you can objectively look at them that way. So what you look at with band is, again, whether it's registering lower or higher, right? Just the pitch is what we're looking at. Micro variations are like, let's say you've got a really high grain density, or not high grain density, but a really fine grain density. If it's higher pitched, it's going to have a fine grain density. Then you can almost get like a clumping. Let's say it's sand and it clumps up, right? So what you start to get is when they clump up, you can hear micro variations, so that it doesn't feel consistent because you're getting this little speckling of a few different sounds. And that's one of the more interesting parts of it. A lot of harsh noise walls have kind of massive micro variations because they're just loose, and that kind of has an old school feel. Specimen and some Sado Rituals kind of stands out to me. What it looks like, you also have something called, so a great majority, I think, or kind of the classic sound that we like, is a full spectrum. Either full spectrum or kind of like low mid to high mid, or like, yeah, low mid to high mid type stuff. Sometimes the lower frequencies, they don't feel as genuine. It feels more modern when you get really low frequencies in a harsh noise wall, and then the high ones are kind of like eerie and like maybe a little bit more annoying than some of those more mid frequencies. Vomir is Claustration 1 was kind of my example in listening for a full spectrum harsh noise wall. Then again, anything older doesn't really have that subwoofer kind of the incredible low push to it. Modern harsh noise walls have quite a bit of that, and it's something that people use a lot. And then the Rita Thousands of Dead Gods, what stood out to me with that album, that was kind of a little bit more, it was a little bit more bifurcated in that it wasn't consistent throughout the whole band. Even though it had frequencies across the whole band, the mid-range wasn't quite as much there as the lows and the highs, which is what people tend to like in regular modern music. Mid-range frequencies are seen as kind of a warmth, which is positive for a lot of older guys are like, you need that tape warmth. Thousands of Dead Gods kind of has a presence in the mid-range, but it's not, it doesn't compose as much density. So, and that's what I mean by bifurcated. It's slightly bifurcated, even though I would consider it to be a full spectrum harsh noise wall. What I would not consider to be a full spectrum harsh noise wall, or a single band harsh noise wall, in that it has, this is what you would call a split band harsh noise wall, or a dual band harsh noise wall, in that it has low frequencies and high frequencies, and there's a complete there's a complete silence in the middle, right? You could consider the Rita to have to be bifurcated or to be split band, but it's nowhere near as bifurcated as an isolated split band harsh noise wall, like Transcendental Meditation by Alion. This is a very common approach in ambient noise walls, where you really have that low hum, and then you have the just high tingling in the higher register, but nothing in the middle. It gives like a cold feeling. It's maybe a little bit more uncomfortable, or it can be very, very, as is the case for transcendental meditation. That's a tough word when I talk as fast as I'm trying to. This one was just so comfortable to listen to, and the high notes just kind of It's like sitting under the stars in a warm blanket. I described it as taking a cozy nap by the fireplace while the fireplace crackles. It was just absolutely relaxing to listen to. Great if you want to listen to a book. Oleon is great for that. Um, but I mean, I should say, as opposed to the Rita and Vomir, I didn't listen to a whole lot of harsh noise walls. Um, while I was composing this idea, I went to those after I was trying to figure out how to address the Cosmic album, Cosmic Silence. Um, that's why I went to those, because I was listening to ambient noise walls, and they're so much easier to pick out what's going on in them, because it works. It doesn't work in the same way as harsh noise, where it's just overwhelming, and that's the way it works. So yeah, in listening to harsh noise walls, if you don't, there's two ways, and I should say with Transcendental Meditation, the second track, I never addressed the second track. The second track was very, it didn't have all that low register, if I remember correctly. It was a little bit more with the mid-range. But it was also, it didn't cease to be relaxing, and it didn't cease to avoid a full spectrum. I can't speak for all noise artists. The idea is not to break it down in a complicated way like that. I think you can and should, but that shouldn't go beyond you just meditating and focusing on the concept that that the artist intends with the album. But that's kind of a way those are kind of the three things that you focus on, whether or not you have those micro variations. I think anything, if you pay enough attention to it and listen to it loud enough, you're going to hear the micro variations in the high mid area. And the band is whether or not you're going to like it. A lot of people don't like low registering stuff. When I started listening to harsh noise walls, I did not like low registering stuff. I like mid range, low mid, and that's as much as I can do. Sado Rituals, I'm thinking about the Sado Rituals Burial Garden split right now. He loves using synth in his harsh noise walls, so he almost had a little bit of an isolated harsh noise wall with synth in the middle. And that was the way that it worked. I probably, before coming up with partialized noise theory, and by the way, I'm not, if there is, I didn't look that hard, if there is better, greater, because most of that idea comes from Vomir and the Rita, but if there's better and greater theory to go towards harsh noise walls, or harsh noise in general, I would love to address that. Please let me know. Let me know in the comments. If you know me, shoot me a message. But partialized noise theory is something that I'd like to expand on. I'd like to get more out of it, and that's one of the things that screams to me in that is those Sado Rituals synth heavy harsh noise walls, them working in that way. So yeah, that's the idea that I got from a lot of the listening that I've been doing recently. I didn't get to, I don't want to make this any longer, I didn't get to any of these. Everything that I talked about in this video was not in these reviews, so I'd like to make a noise with Ivan for these reviews. And also I would like to talk about how harsh noise works apart from just addressing frequencies and grain density. So let me know what you think about this, if you think I'm overcomplicating it, or if you think I'm looking at it a very amateur way. Let me know. We got to talk about this. I want to know how we can address harsh noise walls to be able to enjoy them more. We make so many of them. There are thousands of harsh noise walls being released. We should be able to talk about it. We should be able to listen to it and enjoy it, and know how to listen to and enjoy it, as opposed to just being like, so cool, dude, and then listening to 5 seconds of it and then being like, nice, and moving on. But it's a way to meditate for sure. It's a way to um, it's a way to focus on a concept. It completely clears your mind, and it's almost like a drug. It feels great. Um, there are a lot of reasons to listen to harsh noise walls, but if you're a nerd and you want to get on RYM and argue with people, that works out. That works out perfectly. Just apply that partialized noise theory to it. So yeah, I just wanted to come on and share that. I'll share. I can talk about other things in other videos. Great week. All glory be to God.